Childhood and Growing Up. This is for B.Ed first year, exclusively for Pondicherry University, explained by Dr. Shubha, Vasavi College of Education, Pondicherry. So now we are dealing with Unit-3, Part-1, Status of Childhood and Adolescence. Of course, Unit-1 also we dealt with the same thing. Now here also a little more in detail. Nature of childhood and adolescence in different cultures. Peak in development. Motor, speech, play, creativity, interest, leadership and group behavior. Gender bias, sex role, stereotypes. Status of girl child, especially in underprivileged. Exploitation of child in urban slum. Child development is a dynamic, interactive process. Every child is unique and interacting with the world around them, and the environment also shapes how they think and behave. So it's an interactive process. From infancy to early childhood to middle childhood and to adolescence, there is an interaction between the child and the family, between the child and the community, between the child and the society. So the child and every child mentally, physically, psychologically, physiologically, they are different, unique. And their world also unique. Their family is unique. And their environment and family also shapes how they think and behave. Children growing up in different cultures receive specific inputs from their environment. There's a vast array of cultural differences in children's beliefs and behavior. So even among neighbors, like if one is a Hindu and the other one is a Muslim, or between Hindus also, there are so many cultural differences. Their beliefs are different, their culture is different, their tradition is different. So they are living, they are seeing, they are watching, they are observing a variety of differences. Culture. Language is one of the many ways through which culture affects development. As early as infancy, mothers from different cultures talk to their children differently. This can include the child's interactions with other people and the rules surrounding it. Like in the Western countries, they treat an early childhood person like an adult, like they expect some responsibility with them. So the mother makes the child independent, whereas here in the Eastern countries, it's not like that. So they make their children dependent on mother, dependent on the father. So cultures differ from place to place. Now what is culture? Culture is nothing but the way of living, the belief, the faith, the heritage, the language, the tradition, the custom. So culture is nothing but a way of life. So each one lives in a different way. So they have a set of rules and traditions, rules and norms, procedures set for their own sect, like Nadar, Chettiar. So among Hindus also we have so many sects, and each one will have a different custom, from dressing up to eating and the cooking. So everything is different, and the way they celebrate any festival, that is also different. So they all differ. Each family is unique. So a child behaving with the other person who is having a different culture gets a conflict. Now which one is good? Whether mine is good or theirs is good. So there is a conflict in the mind of the child. We interpret the behavior of others based on certain values and traditions that our culture has. Now we think our culture is good, what my mother taught me is good, or what this auntie is teaching me is good. So there is a conflict. So it includes our beliefs, values, customs, traditions, heritage, artistic expression, etc. Most of these practices and all of them affect the behavior of children. with multiculturalism spreading through the world, we may begin to wonder about what kind of influence the family, ethnic, or national culture will have on the growing adolescents. Means, these days it is not possible for us to stick on to one's own culture. So culture is, as I said, it's a way of living. Now we are living in a heterogeneous society. It's not homogeneous. Those days we had agraharam, where a particular sect of people will live together. So they will have their own beliefs and traditions. And Chettiar will live in one, Muslims will live in particular area. Now these days it's not like that. We are living in apartments. So multiculturalism is there. And children during adolescent age, the teenage people, they go abroad to study. And they are open to different culture over there. So multiculturalism spreading through the world. Now what kind of national culture we will be giving to the growing adolescents? Now we need to think on this point. While puberty and the issues of becoming an adult, now this is throughout the world, it is the same. Throughout the world they are called as teens from 13 to 19, but they grow differently based on their culture, based on their environment, based on the climate also. Knowing these differences, now the parents, they have to understand these differences and they have to help what their children are going through in their mind. So when we talk about the way of living, independence versus dependence. So when a child grows up in a very free environment, he gets a lot of freedom. He expects that freedom is given to everybody, to the person, to the child of his age. So that's what he is thinking. It is customary in the society. So the culture a child grows up in can have an influence on how quickly he becomes independent. But whereas a child who is dependent, he thinks that everyone is dependent. So he cannot take any decision on his own. Now moral differences. Scholars of adolescent behavior, they note that while much of adolescent development happens outside the home, the culture of the family instills upon children their developmental roots. So, from young age, a mother and father or grandparents, they have to instill the values, the traditional values, their beliefs, their heritage in the minds of the children. So, only these form the roots. Once the roots are strong, then they can withstand any storm in their life. Parents coming from different culture emphasize different value sets and therefore teach their children different moral standards. In the USA, if any person, any child lies, then it's a grave mistake. The parent will not accept. But here in India, we have Kalavam Katrumara. There is a proverb. That is, you have to steal, you have to learn to steal, and then you have to forget. So it's okay. It's okay with the children. As adolescents grow up in different culture, with different values, their moral standards solidify differently. This we have to take into consideration. Effects on the ego. Culture is a part of the reason some adolescents are seen by their peers as arrogant or timid. For example, in Spanish families in the USA, you have a lot of Spanish family and they are called Hispanic people. They tend to raise their adolescents as strong-willed, standing up for themselves when needed. So once they reach their teen, they are given full freedom. They have to work part-time. They have to earn money. They need to stand on their own feet. They should not depend on parents for anything. They instill a sense of self-pride in their children. But in other culture, like for example, if we take Japanese culture, de-emphasize the pride of the individual in favor of pride of the group. That is, to uphold the pride of the group, one has to give up the pride of the individual. So that is being told, that is being practiced with Japanese. So Hispanic children and Japanese children might be considered timid, but Japanese children will consider Hispanic children to be very, very haughty, very tough to deal with. The values of people living in different cultures can be markedly different. This is often reflected in the richly diverse aspects of human potential, including the physical, psychological, social, sexual, spiritual, artistic, and economic development of the individual. Broadly speaking, the cognitive, affective, and the psychomotor domain. Many of these qualities gives a window of opportunities. Window of opportunities means many opportunities to the highly dynamic adolescent children, providing the necessary support. Now we, like the parents and the teachers, we need to give them the necessary support to the young people so that they will reach their fullest potential to enrich the society. But this is sometimes hampered by the cross-cultural attempts. Now we have the Western influence also. So the Western influence to the Eastern countries and the Eastern influence to the Western country, it gives a frequent tendency to shift from the traditional societies. Adolescent independence, competitiveness, non-differentiation between the sexes, and professional intervention are sometimes promoted. Now, these are promoted at the expense of family unity, respect for elders, social cohesion, and differentiated roles for each gender. That is, adolescent children, just to get independence, just to show their leadership qualities, and just to show their professional development or professional intervention, they give up the family unity, they give up the respect for elders, and there are differentiated roles for each gender also. Economic and academic achievement are sometimes promoted at the expense of emotional and spiritual expression and social relationships, especially within the family. That is, they want to achieve academically and they want to have some economic freedom. For that, they don't want to listen to their parents. So at the expense of relationship within the family, they want to, prove their individuality. This is heavily supported by the explosion of mass media. So the mass media is one thing. The movies show, and they have hero worship and heroine worship. And they look at the hero, they want to be like that hero. So they look at some models, they want to be like that model. So for that they do anything. That is why we have so many, like the fans of a particular leader. And here I have to tell you one thing, that the conflict in the minds of the children is like this. The parents or the family or a different culture is telling them non-violence. They have to practice non-violence. If somebody is slapping you in this cheek, you have to show the other cheek. That's what Jesus Christ said. This also being preached. But together, everybody, the entire family, the parents, grandparents, the grandchildren. So we all sit in a theater, and a full theater packed with some 1,000 to 5,000 audience watch the movie where the hero is cutting the finger of a villain and killing the other person. We watch very coolly. So the child is looking at the grandparent and the parent. Yes, violence can be accepted. So there is a conflict. Now we say one thing and we don't practice. We enjoy something else. But in reality, if something happens, in the movie, if somebody rapes, we enjoy, we all sit and watch. But if somebody really rapes a girl, then we all feel very bad about it. No, it's a conflict. A child watching this behavior of elders tries to question what is happening, which one is good, which one I need to follow. So this media, this mass media and mass travel, which has given rise to a global youth culture. So now the globe has become a village, global village. So we can say youth culture throughout the world that emanates from more or less economically developed societies, promoting aspects of adolescent development that are not germane to the culture, that are not rooted to our culture, runs the risk of disintegrating that culture, along with the self-esteem of both young and old, and of losing qualities that are of great importance to that culture. And indeed, we need to restore in the newer societies, that is, the older generation, they have to instill the traditions and the heritage of their beliefs and their culture to the newer society, to the youngsters. Only then that culture will be saved. The rapid upsurge of priority being given to the health and well-being of young people holds much promise for the whole world because of the energy, creativity, idealism, and unrestrained excitement the young can bring to it. That is, we want the youngsters to be good because they are with the energy and they have to hold our pride. They have to hold our heritage and our tradition and our culture. This needs to be supported without being stifled by the wisdom of older generation, and perhaps especially from the older cultures, in order to balance the predominance of the newer cultures in communication and economic power. It's the need of the hour. Definitions of stages of growth in childhood come from many sources. Theories from Jean Piaget, Vygotsky, Kohlberg, Erikson. So they have provided ways to understand the development, and recent research has provided important information regarding the nature of development. Now these theories we will be learning in the following units. In addition, stages of childhood are defined culturally by the social institutions. So customs and laws that make up a society. For example, while researchers and professionals usually define the period of early childhood as birth to 8 years of age, that's what everybody says. But in the United States, they consider the age 5 a better end point because it coincides with the entry into cultural practice of formal schooling. So the age of 5, they go to school. So when the formal school begins, then only the cultural practice begins. That's what the USA believe. But from birth to 8 years of age, we consider early childhood, the rest of the world. So from culture to culture, it differs.